I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. Happy to see Lisa here.
Hi, Lisa.
And that is our entire public. Waiving any discussion of rules of procedure, asking if we have new additions to the agenda, not the menu.
Yes, I do have one new addition which will fall under new business. We have a request for a temporary liquor permit.
Okay. And Gordon and I wanted to just have a quick review of upcoming meetings and workshops. So I don't know if you got a chance to work on that today.
I didn't get it finished.
So that will not be on the agenda. So we'll postpone that till next week, next 2 weeks from now. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda? So there was. We were gonna put Danny first, but he may not be here. So we'll see how that goes, and we may put him back to the end. We'll see. Approval of the minutes, I think we will table. The minutes of August 28th we will table because there are a number of edits to be made to the minutes that probably we don't want to take time up discussing tonight. I gave Peter some edits. I don't know if other people have
Are
edits.
they there?
These are the minutes
That's
from
her
last
copy,
week,
and
this
then
is
here's
my
another.
copy.
I'll take
Here's
that
another.
Okay, because I think I did have something, but why don't we move on, and if I have something I can add.
So you can share it with,
Yeah.
Apparently there was a couple things I missed this time around.
whipping right through to new business. Lisa, reappraisal errors and omissions. And we just need because we have some new select board member, a little introduction to what this
Yes.
is. I may not have described it accurately.
Yes, well, let me just give you each a sheet. Errors and omissions is after we have done the grand list, discovering that there are things that were mistakenly, were done incorrectly or just plain not happened. Errors and omissions. It's just, but it's done after we've done our grand list, after you've had that to do the tax rates. This is not grievances. We did have some post grand list grievances. They are not included on this because those are not errors or omissions. So these again are just any questions about what it is and is not. So we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties that had a variety of little things. And what I've got there is I've got the property ID, the before value. The before value is actually what was the value when we submitted the grand list. The after value is what we change it to doing the E&O, the difference, and then the reason. So there are a variety of heating systems, basement issues, bathroom, septic systems, and lack thereof. So that is basically what we have. So my request from the Board of Listers is for you as a board to accept our errors and omissions as presented. Then we can do revised tax bills and send out new tax bills to these people. And it does go, this does get filed in with our grand list in the book that's in the vault.
So these, I notice there are no increases in valuations. Nobody
Of course.
grieved for an increase, or nobody. We didn't.
Nobody found any errors that would cost them more. It's shocking. It's shocking.
I don't
Okay.
think that's accurate.
So what is the total difference in the proposed grand list now?
I did not add that up. I can try calculating with my phone here, and I can
Sign in.
It's about 175.
Yeah, okay. If you wanted exact, I was going to say.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a decrease in the in the grand list of about $175,000.
Okay. Yep.
Does that change the tax rate?
Tax rate is.
The tax rate is set.
The
So we
tax
just
rate
will be
is set.
collecting that much less in tax this year. Is that gonna, we'll have to reflect that someplace, I think. I don't know how we do that.
Phone.
Is there any discussion or are there any questions for Lisa on this? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I so move
To do what?
to accept the errors and omissions
Yes.
that Lisa has presented to us
Second.
on behalf of the
Lester?
listers.
And your total, by the way, is 155, 550,
Okay,
unless I did that wrong, but.
I don't know. Is there a second?
Gabby.
Gabby?
Yep,
Gabby
Gabby
seconded.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you.
And I will plan on seeing you all in 2 weeks for a more extensive visit.
And
Okay.
I asked Peter to ask you if we could have, by the Thursday before the
Yes.
meeting, a summary of what you're doing, just to make sure that we have a chance to review.
Absolutely.
report.
Jeremiah and I are setting up, we work today, our other today, so we're doing 3 weeks of actually working together on Mondays, so we have everything
Excellent.
well in advance of what you need.
Great,
Excellent,
thanks.
thank
You're welcome. So you will have
Appreciate
it digitally to be emailed.
Okay, great,
Right?
thank you.
Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm leaving. Have a good night.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Should I sign in, I suppose?
Yeah, please. Is the select board in favor of going back up to
Yes.
highway general update now?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi,
Dan?
What would you like to know?
Aren't you glad you're not?
Well, the first thing I want to know is why haven't you been at the head of this agenda? I mean, I thought this was brilliant to put Danny forward because he seems to
A
have
lot
to
of
stay.
times I just like listening to the.
I know you do.
I have to say that there are plenty of times when Dan is here and he
And
has
he's-
something to contribute that
I-
because of his longevity with the town, you add value to the meetings.
I do.
And I'm not taking away
So,
from that.
Oh, God.
So
But
we
to
just-
hold you here when you don't want to add
So
value.
some interminably long meetings, it just seemed like, I mean, there might be times when we might ask you to stay,
Yeah,
Right, that's different.
but,
no problem.
so what do we need to know?
Sand shed's full. We just finished that, filling it today. We put in almost 2,400 yards. And I split it between Zaluzny and Sosimo, so.
So all that sand for those two suppliers is for the winter, correct?
Yeah, between them two. We did get this state contract for the salt. Actually, American Rock Salt got it this year. It's $71 and change a ton. We're gonna start our fall grading, probably tomorrow. And I'm gonna get Peter in the seat of the grader and get him some seat time in it, so. Then we're still doing culverts and our other projects, so. We did get the bids today for the grant applications,
Which grant,
The
the better
better
roads?
for the Better Back Roads. I opened them up, and Peter and I went through them. Did you hear anything from Alan May?
Nope, I did not.
Okay, before we can make a decision on who gets them, they have to review them.
Yeah, the state has to review
Yeah.
the bids prior to the select board making a
Yeah.
decision.
Do they certify them that they are what the scope of work needs, like what is it say doing?
Because of the nature of the grants, the state wants to verify insurance, make sure that they're licensed, fully in compliance, that they understand the state minimum requirements for the project. So those are the main things that they want to review.
And do we have to take the lowest bid?
Not to my understanding. That's one of my questions that's out. I have read through in depth the accepted grant application, and nowhere in there have I found that we're required to take the lowest bid. Which is kind of,
want to take the lowest bid?
Like if we check the references and the references weren't good, then I wouldn't want the lowest bid if it's not a good quality product, for example.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you people have you can look at them. I mean,
Yeah.
Peter's got them if you want to review them.
Well, I'm
The
assuming
bids
you'll
that come in.
make them available for us and
I
with
will.
comments
Yeah.
on
correct.
how the state responds, Alan, whatever his name is.
They were both pretty, one was a little higher, the other was a little lower, on the two different jobs.
But the lower one has the potential that it could slightly increase depending on a couple of
Right, couple of
other
things.
circumstances.
And yeah, just to like more fully answer your question, a lot of times with federal funding, you have to take the lowest bid as long as it's certified that it meets certain project requirements. So that's why I asked that question to see if that was something we just had to do automatically or whether we actually looked at the bids and had a choice.
So that's the Better Back Roads grant.
That's the Better Back.
That's
So
correct.
in the next meeting's folder, we will have the original request for
The RFP.
proposal,
Yeah.
I didn't say that, and the
Then you
responses
guys
and
can make a
recommendations.
decision on what, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay,
Well, hopefully by then we should hear from the Better Back Roads
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And then the small grants thing for FEMA, is that something that you and Peter are still discussing? That's a different thing from the Better Back Roads.
Which one was that?
That's the one that we were
Back
talking
in
about.
July, I haven't heard a
culverts.
word on that. I met with Megan and Mark on Friday and
Uh-huh.
they never said nothing on it, so.
So we're still-
we're
we were-
pushing to get this, because the window's closing, I think, and
They're, right now, that project up on Carpenter Hill Road is, they're waiting for the hydraulic studies to come back.
Yeah.
the ones on Green, down by Green River?
The ones down by Green River is just Better Back Roads.
Okay.
Are you talking about the grants and aid? What's the smaller grant that you're talking about?
The
It said
FEMA,
FEMA.
because of the FEMA disaster, that's right, that's the Carpenter Hill Road. Because of the FEMA disaster, we originally thought we were not eligible for FEMA grants, but then
We're
in the
not.
small print, there's a program, a small program
Oh.
grant
Through the
that,
state.
through the state, that they said we might be, I
That
asked
would be
Peter to
for-
check into it and see if we were eligible, and we are, and he and Danny were trying to get that information going.
Hopefully that would be for the Carpenter Hill culvert.
For the culvert and culvert, correct.
And then the other one through Wyndham Regional,
That's the grants and aid.
yeah, we've gone out and looked at the sites on that and we've been approved for that one. which-
And you guys already started the
I
work.
started it and we quit because we've been doing other things, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping to get back to it either this week or next week.
So does anybody have a sense of how much that means in grants to the town for road work? The Better Back Roads grant is approximately?
It's not approximately, the Better Back Roads is 60,000 in total
Mhm.
between the two projects.
And the FEMA small projects?
The FEMA, we do not know. Part of the thing is, we're still waiting on the state to get back to us on that.
Mhm.
Partially, we're waiting on, as Dan mentioned already, we're waiting on the hydraulic study that the local office was doing, and then we're waiting on the state office up in Waterbury to further information on
Okay.
that. So I don't know how much that's going to be.
And then
Either way, I don't know.
the grants and aid?
The grants and aid is $20,900.
Good,
That's the one through Wyndham Regional.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Right, yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
May you be successful in all of them.
Hopefully.
Now, does that update go into the minutes that we just did?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything more to add? Any more questions for Danny? Ooh, sorry, who are you? I'm sorry, would you introduce yourself, please?
Dolores Clark.
Dolores Clark, sorry. I'm, met you before, sorry.
Yeah, I probably look older. I was
So do we all.
actually gonna ask, and you're here, Danny, is there a way that perhaps those logs could not be piled against the building down?
They're gonna be gone here in another week.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to pile them up against the building.
They're not
like
up against the building, they moved them. Cause I've been checking on them
Mm-hmm,
and they weren't up against the building.
they were at one point.
No, they weren't, cause I went down and checked them.
Mm-hmm,
So
okay.
they're
What
gonna, he's
logs
all,
and what
matter of
building
fact,
they
he
were
stopped into
referring
the,
The old
Down
town
at the-
garage.
Yeah,
he stopped into, they're all done. We said they'll be gone probably another week, so. And I did find out that the landowner on Sweet Pond Road with one of the projects, they just got back today from Tennessee, so I'm hoping to go up and meet with them in the morning, so.
Thank you.
And we also got confirmation in writing from the state earlier this afternoon. So for the Better Back Roads grant, the state has, the Better Back Roads program has minimum requirements for various features in the work, such as the width and depth of grass line ditches, the width and depth of stone line ditches, and a variety of other things. And so this, Megan and Mark came out with you yesterday or today?
No, Friday, we met on.
Oh, Friday.
Yeah.
And so they looked at the area that Dan was concerned about not being able to meet those minimum requirements. And I did receive in writing today that the contractor is supposed to do the best job that they can, and that it's not feasible to meet those minimum requirements, just based off of the property owner's land, as well as the width of the road and a number of other factors.
Trees and.
Trees and
stone
ledge
wall,
and-
yeah.
So you have no
You have latitude.
legal or liability issues with any particular
Correct.
property owners or?
We
With
measured
any
the
particular
road, what
property.
we're gonna be doing up there is is in our right of way,
Okay,
so.
Great.
great, thank you.
And we're gonna try to keep it close as.
Yeah.
Tight as we can.
Congratulations.
So we just
Thank
got
you.
that
Yeah.
information today, so.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That is it. And
Thanks, Dan.
now we've also
Wow.
completed
Go
old
back, finish
business.
taking my nap.
Good to see you, Dan.
See you, Dan.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Recreation Commission, and so it says update, but actually we're talking about appointment of a commissioner, and then a more general conversation about a procedure for appointing commissioners. So,
Would you like me to,
so I'm wondering if we should have the conversation before we actually consider the Recreation Commissioner's recommendation for a commissioner. If we should have a conversation about the process of appointing, that the select board observes for appointing commissioners, which, as I shared with people, so does people agree that?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, that the planning commission generally asks people who are volunteering to become commissioners to submit a letter of interest to the select board and to the planning commission for consideration. And I was reminded of this. I'd totally forgotten that I did it myself, and that that we did it as a practice before. I was reminded of this by Michelle this week, because she has 2 to 4 potential candidates for new planning commission members, and she has asked them to submit letters of interest to the select board. In the case of the Recreation Commission and in the case of other commissions, we have not asked for this. And we've been focusing more on trying to be more consistent in our practices, and I thought it was worth having a discussion about whether we wanted to go the way of asking people to submit letters of interest. If we did that, would that mean we might discourage some potential volunteers from serving if they instead could have a conversation with people on the commission, go to the commission meeting, see whether there's a fit there or not, and then submit themselves as candidates to the commission, and then the commission would then select them, would then recommend them to the select board. So, so I'm interested in people's opinions,
I like the one you just outlined.
volunteering,
which
and
gives
then having the
commission,
commissioners.
yeah, because to me, it's really important for people to have a specific interest in a commission and express that to the commission. And this is a group that you're going to be working with
Yeah.
down the road. So I feel giving them more ability to work through that process is important.
giving who?
Giving the
The commission
commissions
itself,
the
not-
possibility of working with potential volunteer commissioners.
Correct.
Do we have an outline of what the role of each commission is,
We
and
do.
what the duties of each commissioner
Yes,
are?
we do.
Okay, so that, I would think that a letter of intent is not necessary,
Mhm.
or a letter of interest is not necessary, given that it's a volunteer position. It seems to me to be sort of militating against volunteerism in a
I
way.
completely agree. I
That's
just wanted
my
to make
feeling.
sure that people were comfortable with, we don't want to do anything to discourage the amazing amount of volunteerism that we have in this community. And if we ask people to write letters, that could serve as a hurdle
Definitely.
that they don't want.
I think-
Okay, thank you.
Does everybody agree?
I don't
Yeah,
think we
I feel
need to-
good
I
about
do.
that.
But is the process articulated somewhere that we
No,
just
it's
went
never
through?
been articulated.
So I think that we need to have an articulation that the select board agrees that this is the way that people are appointed to commissions, or that they come before commissions for appointment. It should be written down.
And the commission propose, maybe it's in the commission description that commissioners propose new members to the select board
Yeah.
for appointment. And we try to make it
That's a
simple.
good
Recommend, recommend
Yeah.
potential
Well,
new commissioners.
And I feel comfortable with the fact that the different commissions have different mandates. And so, for instance, for somebody to come on the cemetery commission, the accountability, in a sense, is different from somebody joining the planning commission, which is going to be helping to provide direction, to facilitate the creation of a direction for the whole town. And so to have each commission understand that they're going to submit their recommendations to the select board, I think is really good. But I also think that each commission could be deciding how much, I don't know what to call it, sort of like what kind of winnowing process or
Or
invitation
what
process.
criteria they're looking
Right,
for
criteria.
in a
Thank you,
commissioner.
Richard.
You're very welcome.
Maybe we should have a motion that says each commission can make recommendations to the select board regarding new commissioners, regarding the appointment of new commissioners, assuming that the commissions themselves will advise potential candidates of the board, the commission's responsibilities and the role of the commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
Sure, I mean, maybe we could put it more simply.
Yeah, I'm like just struggling here, but go ahead.
No, I
Those
mean-
were a lot of words, but they were good words.
No, I really like, I completely support the principle of it, you know, and so maybe it could just be 2 sentences, you know. Each commission is responsible for recruiting new commissioners.
Why don't we take a, oh, I'm
Go
gonna volunteer
ahead.
you now. Why don't we take a look at what the descriptions for the commissions actually say,
Oh,
and then we can adjust as per the motion.
Yes.
oh, okay, that's great.
So, if I could ask a question here. So, besides here in the minutes, where is this going to be recorded and kept so that future select board members know that this is something that you moved in the past, and
Future commission chairs.
future commission chairs understand that this is the
In the description
procedure?
of the commission.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you would
So-
like
Each commission ought to
Yeah,
have
that's-
this
So
represented.
we spent a
The
long
same
time
wording.
working on the commissioner.
Right, exactly, the same
Identical-
wording
identical
throughout.
everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's-
Last year,
Okay.
2 years ago, we spent a long time working on the function, the mandate of the Recreation Commission. And I don't, I've seen one for the Planning Commission, I have never seen one for the Cemetery Commission.
I never
But
was,
I'm sure
I
it
never
exists.
knew, in all of the records of the Cemetery Commission, I've never seen a description more than what the statutory responsibilities of a Cemetery Commission is. But I guess, anyway, so do we need a motion?
Just tie up loose ends, do it.
And
It's
we
already
already
been moved
did,
and
we already
seconded.
had it.
We have a motion,
So
we have
can
a
you
second.
She
get-
seconded it.
Do we
Okay.
have, could you say something like what we've talked about as the motion?
I was just going to ask for one of you to clarify.
I think it's that, the commissions have the latitude to vet out and recommend to the select board for appointment new commissioners. And they'll let the commissioners know what they need to do as a commissioner.
Right, according to the criteria that the commission has established or something like that.
I
Right.
think that's a good recap. Thank you.
I think that's really good. Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so just briefly about the rec commission, Jake Dixon has volunteered to join the rec commission, and I'd like to recommend
And the
her.
rec commission is in support of
The
this.
rec
of
commission,
this-
yes,
of the
I
select board
recruited
appointing,
her
yeah.
and I convinced her to talk with them, and she and they have come to an agreement.
But can you make a recommendation? Isn't it you're not on the recreation, you're the
I'm
liaison.
the, I'm the
representing.
liaison,
Oh.
and so I've been authorized.
Oh, you're
by
an official
them.
representative.
So do you need then a motion to?
Yes,
Did you move?
Can I move it?
you may move.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that, okay, I move that the select board accept Jake Dixon as the new rec commission commissioner.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And just briefly, I spoke with Pete Hetzel today about joining forces between the rec club and the rec commission. And the rec commission has outreach to Andy Loney as part of
Wonderful.
theirs. So, they're trying to
Thank you.
reach out and collaborate, and my job is in part just to help that along.
Good.
Good, thank you very much,
Awesome.
Miranda. Peter, I know you're typing, but
I
did you
am.
want to discuss liquor permit with us, or?
Sure, I can fill in those details later. This only came up at like 4:45 today,
And it's
so
time sensitive?
it is time sensitive apparently. But it is from Loconta Hospitality LLC, doing business as New England House. They would like to have a company party for Commonwealth Dairy and serve beer and wine. And yeah, so they are looking for approval.
Do they need our
Where?
approval? Because
Where?
the one that we approved last time, we turned out didn't need
It
our
was,
approval.
so I was mistaken on that last one. It's the other way around. So it's the short-term ones you guys have to grant your approval on, and it's the permanent licenses that the state has to
okay.
grant approval for.
Where is this being held?
Yeah, Guilford Fairgrounds. That's why it's Guilford.
Yes,
Okay.
Guilford Fairgrounds, there we go, thank you. It's from 1 until 10 p.m.
Oh,
With approximately 200 people expected to show up to the event.
Sounds like a great party.
Yeah.
Are we invited?
so
Only
what,
joking.
I just, this is beyond the point, but what is the party for? To celebrate Commonwealth
Commonwealth.
Dairies?
It's a company party
if
for Commonwealth Dairy.
And like an
Yeah.
employee pick.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
staff
How really
party,
nice.
yeah. I think that's,
So if you approve this, then Penny will sign it and send it off to the state.
I so move that we accept.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You sign for me?
No, you
Penny.
need to check the box that it's approved, but Penny's the one that signs it. So, Richard, you
Richard
moved.
and Veranda tonight?
Mhm.
Moving right along. The next item on the agenda is the town office renovation project. So we have read proposals, we have listened to presentations, we have discussed, we have had a workshop to look into this pretty deeply. We have sought legal counsel, and I think we've really covered our bases, and that we are ready to select pretty much, hopefully based on the proposal matrix, the results of the proposal matrix and the criteria that were laid out in the RFP.
If you need a refresher, here are copies of the matrix.
Would like to ask if anybody has any more discussion, or if someone is, thank you, Peter, ready to make a recommendation, a motion to hire an architect.
Did we check references?
As far as
Like call them
Calling
up and
them.
say, what did, ask them 5 questions, like, what was the project, how was the work performed, would you hire them again?
no, actually, to be honest, we did not do that.
Because, I mean, I know it says 3 professional references, and generally that doesn't mean they just provided them, it means that the
We
5
should check
points
them.
go to actually, when you check the references, they're
Sure,
good.
sure.
The reference letters were included with.
There's no, usually it's just a reference that says you can call these 5 people, or
So,
whatever.
but I mean, some of them included reference
That's
letters
correct.
into
True.
their,
They
into
did,
their
yeah.
response
true.
to the RFP. You know, I would call it, too. I think that's a good idea. Can we make a motion that on condition that the references
Yes.
turn out to be positive? Would that be all right with you?
Well, I'd say assuming that they were all, I mean, because if we're relying on the matrix,
Correct.
then we need, the 5s for that portion of the matrix, the 3 professional references, just need to be a 5 if we're relying on the matrix. You
It
know what
looks
I'm
like they all are 5s.
Right, but that's because they were provided, we didn't actually call them.
Colin,
Yeah.
she's correct.
But,
I mean,
but what I'm saying is,
if we want to go
I
with,
see what
as
you're
long
saying,
as you
we'd have to
provided
call all of
references,
them.
right, as long as you provide references, you get the 5 points,
I
which,
see. I'm
if
sorry.
that's their decision, that's fine too, but usually it means you provide them your call.
So are you suggesting that we,
I think,
what do you think of my suggestion that we name the firm and on the condition that the references turn out to be positive? I mean, I've done that before in hiring.
I've done that before too, and if you're doing it, if you're saying we're gonna rely on this matrix to make our decision, then you have to call all of them, that's my only point.
All of the references of
Do you-
all of the.
Right, because otherwise, how
Even-
did they get a 5?
but if.
Unless we decide that just providing references gave you a 5. you know what I'm saying? That's my
So I
only.
think
So-
that is actually true, Gabby, because
That
that's how the
important,
thing was stipulated. However, if upon calling, we find there's some discouraging information about whoever we might select, then I think your caveat protects us from being bound.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what I
so-
like Richard's, as long as we're all in agreement that that's how it was scored.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's how the RFP was written, is that the points were
To provide,
given on providing the references.
And so in the unlikely event that one of the references that they offered was negative, then what? Do we just come back at our next meeting and regroup?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to.
Any more discussion? Is there a motion for an architect?
I would move that we, I want to make the motion that we move with Greenberg Associates, but I want to define what it is that we're moving to retain them for. So I'd like that to be in the
Okay,
motion.
so we talked about that in the last meeting. Let me see if I can find that
Yeah.
file and pull that up.
I think the motion should also say that based on its achievement of the highest,
Yeah, they got the highest
Matrix,
points
correct.
based on the
Based
matrix.
based on
I
the
was just
matrix,
writing
so
that.
the motion should say
Based-
that.
I'm
Based
writing
on
that
the-
into the
Good.
motion as you guys are
Great.
waiting that.
So here's what we talked about at the last.
Wasn't that an executive session?
I'm talking about the project itself.
Okay.
I think it's a summary of the RFP. The firm selected will work with the select board to outline the scope of the project, budget, priorities, addressing issues such as must take care of immediately, can stage over time, etc. That's in parentheses, I'll give this to you. Timeline, it's actually in the folder from last week. Plan for continuing town operations during any construction phase and communication with residents.
Yep.
So that was, and I mean, we also talked about goals, but those are also in the RFP. Extend the life of the building for several more decades, conserve town funds, which means to not incur debt or raise taxes, make the building ADA compliant and accessible to all residents and visitors, enhance the energy efficiency of the building to realize savings, communicate on a regular basis with residents about project status.
Right, but we don't need all of that.
I don't think we
Just
need
the
all of
front
that, but if
piece.
you want that,
Yeah.
that's how we had,
The front piece is what I would like to be in the motion.
so it's in the,
It's 5 tasks.
it's in the
or
last,
something.
Yeah.
But
the meeting of
based
11/28 folder.
Based
The
on the
matrix.
matrix,
That
yeah.
was a
But maybe we should
7, 8 August.
Give background that there's a matrix.
17th town office
It was a
renovation
total of
project.
100 points
Mhm.
over 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 various categories. It was
Yep.
stated in the RFP, the matrix itself and what the points would be given for. Greenberg and Associates got a total score of 92. Austin Design got a total score of 90. Robert Buchanan Architects got a total
Buchan.
got a total score of 81. UK Architects got a total score of 79, and NBF got a total score of 46. So there are several high contenders. I think we had a number of good options to choose from, and we're lucky that we
Very
had
much
so
so.
many
Yes.
come forth and put forth a proposal.
Yeah, very conscientiously, you know.
in thorough.
They were
There are-
good presentations, we learned a lot from them.
And that we're picking the highest one based on the matrix and the scores.
You made a motion. Did anyone second?
Not yet.
I will second.
Gordon is seconding.
And so we're gonna go to, I just wanna be clear, we're gonna go to negotiation for those tasks and then come back with a proposed contract and budget,
Yes,
right?
that's
Correct.
the intent.
And
Okay.
you might
Yeah.
add that into there.
All right. So
And we'll be happy to share all of this information with the public. You know,
Yeah.
that's why we have BCTV here and, you know, we want to have this process be transparent and have the support of our town, you know.
so what was the last part that you wanted added in here?
I'm just trying to do.
I just clarified to make sure we were all
Right.
knew what was going
Yeah.
on.
So all that doesn't have to go in the
It
motion.
doesn't have to go in the meeting,
But it-
so
Right.
minutes
It's
of the
based
motion.
on the criteria.
I'm concerned only on the motion at the moment.
Oh,
So-
what the last part was that it was going to be to to eventually negotiate a contract and budget, right?
Well, contract,
want
not, and not the budget for the
Not the budget.
construction, but a budget for the scope of
The
work
scope of work.
that would then be proposed to the select board. But,
Yes.
you know, it's not like we're going off and signing a contract willy-nilly without knowing how much
Right,
it's
so
gonna
that was
cost.
the last part you were looking
So
for.
may
Once these
I-
negotiations are complete, we will then sign a contract.
So may I read the
You had that in there.
the motion as I have it written, and then you can
Sure.
change it as
Please
you
do.
need. So, Richard moved, oh, okay, sorry.
Richard moved in.
Richard moved to retain Greenberg and Associates Architects based on receiving the highest score from the scoring criteria as defined within the RFP. This firm will work with the select board to outline the scope of the project, the budget, priorities, such as addressing issues that may be taken care of immediately in staging, a timeline, and plan for continuing town operations during the construction phase, and communicating with town residents.
Once these negotiations are complete, we will then proceed to the contract stage.
Yeah.
I just put it in the document, Peter, so.
So once these negotiations,
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining
That's right.
due to potential
That's
conflict.
correct. So Gabby's abstaining, otherwise it passed.
And who's doing the, do we have a person action item? Who's doing the negotiation, like who's gonna contact? Is that Peter?
So contacting them about this is one thing, but then whether we want to meet with these architects as a group or appoint a subcommittee to work with them.
No subcommittees.
No
I
subcommittee?
mean, that's just my feeling.
I'm sorry.
I've played.
So would you be heading towards, I mean, I don't know that we want to be negotiating something like this in an hours-long select board meeting. I think we need to have meetings to have conversations with these. I don't know whether it's all five of us plus Peter.
I would think there's a point person that then, when it gets close to whatever signatory, you know, you have a good solid proposal, it comes back to the select board and you do it in executive session because it's a contract negotiation.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you, Gordon.
I think if we were to ask Peter to do it, I do think that there should be a select board person who also works with Peter on this contract.
That's fine.
And
Do you want
doesn't
to?
necessarily mean,
Can you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pick the, you know, I can go help with that end. It's not a conflict at this point.
Are you comfortable doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it.
yeah, I'd be most comfortable with you taking that on.
Thank you, Gabby. Walked right into that.
I did, didn't I?
Well,
Um,
your expertise.
Involuntary volunteer.
But you know,
You're a good fit for that.
I mean, you do. This is
It
what
does
you
make sense.
do.
It does
Really
make
are.
sense. It's totally
So I
cool.
appreciate
due diligence.
I love
Capital
it.
needs assessment, Peter.
So capital needs assessment. All right, I'm still trying to make sure I got everything from that last thing.
I could help you on that.
So the capital needs assessment, I was working on finalizing the details of that and
The RFP
the
or,
RFP, yes, and was waiting for. I didn't hear from all select board members. I only heard back from some, as far as whether or not you thought it was fine. Also had, as I shared with all of you previously, I had Isaac take a look at it, and he, as I also shared with you, he recommended removing the town office portion out of the capital needs assessment at this time, because it's not relevant based on the other work that we're doing.
Yeah, we should also update it. Like Katie Buckley's name was on it, for
Yeah,
example.
there's a
like,
few details
I
that I
assumed
would.
that was a very, very
Yep.
early draft that was just sent around for sort of
so in other words, the
cursory
RFP is not
review.
complete. It has not been sent out. And you are waiting for more select board.
I did not.
I have to apologize. It was on
No,
my
I-
list to do.
I don't know that
and
everybody needs to go back to, you know,
Oh, okay, but
Well,
I wanted to read it, actually. I
Ba-
saved it in my files.
So based off of the previous meeting when this was discussed, what the action to be was that I would share it with all of you and that all of you would provide
Right.
feedback,
Right.
even if it was so simple as to say, this
Right.
looks fine.
And that's,
And I did not receive feedback from all select board members. And
Right.
in that email that I sent out, I did acknowledge there were
Mhm.
a few details such as, you know, the names, the dates, a few other minor things that had not been changed. It was the substantive body of the RFP that needed to be looked
okay.
at.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with the comment that the town office needs to be taken out. I mean, my concept, and I probably was not articulate at all, was that the idea is to have an idea of what do we need in all of our buildings, what do we need when we're working with the architect on our town building, and then having a 5,000 whatever foot idea of where we can budget and over how much time
For the other buildings.
for everything that
Yeah.
we're gonna
Right.
need.
But including the town office.
Including the town
yeah.
office, but we have an architect on that,
Right.
yeah.
So when in my answer to Peter, I said I understood Isaac's advice and think it makes sense. This CNA is something that should have been done 2 years ago, and that before we got to the urgent situation with the town office where we needed to do something immediate. Having failed to meet that goal, we made a decision as a board agreeing that town office renovations and repairs were a priority and that we needed to proceed with an RFP. I think at that same meeting, we agreed, this could have been before March, that the town garage would be our second priority, and I honestly do not remember.
No, I do remember that.
Gabby, I think
Conversation.
you had said that you thought the CNA evaluation of the town office would help us negotiate the scope of work and the priorities and the timeline, but I don't think we're gonna,
I mean, maybe like
we're
in
gonna be
March.
behind, yeah.
I mean, but not right now.
And then but I think we could make the task easier for a CNA consultant by sharing whoever, selected architect's assessment with anyone who chooses to respond to this CNA, just so that they get an overview of what's going on into this as well. So,
The other thing that I just, as a reminder to you guys, if we do remove the town office from the capital needs assessment, that we can also reduce the overall budget for the capital needs assessment.
Right.
okay.
So do we need to wait for everybody to respond to?
Does everybody want to, or has everybody done what they want to do on it? Because I think this still needs to move forward.
You know, I haven't read it. I will read it tomorrow, and if something, I would say go on and let's go on and proceed with it. But I did want to. I thought it was an important document for me to
Yeah, we have a good sense of those things.
Yeah.
And other than the town building discussion coming out, that capital needs assessment didn't change from what was originally drawn up by Katie at the time.
At this point in time,
Correct,
no.
okay, so no, then
And
right.
based off of Isaac's advice, he
Right,
felt that
I
it
understand.
still stands as valid. He just
Right.
felt that we should
Right.
remove that one portion from
Right.
And
it.
that makes
No,
sense.
that's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it, and I think that was my reaction
That
when
was
I heard
correct.
about it,
Yeah.
but I never circled with you to communicate that, so that's my bad.
Okay.
So Peter, can maybe you prod us if you haven't gotten a final word back from us?
I just
and
don't know
we'll
how
just-
much to prod you guys.
Oh,
You can
prod.
prod, you can prod,
And
Okay.
we promise to get you a response by
right.
Wednesday?
Yeah, I'll have your
Yes.
response tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So-
But I am
So
comfortable
does that
with
mean that we?
I think we can just put it out once you've gotten people's comments and integrated it. There's
So-
nothing material, right?
Does
no,
that,
nothing.
it doesn't require a motion?
We've done the
Nope, you already
motion.
did it.
Okay,
Yeah, so
great.
let's go with it.
Oh,
So
to
I-
wonder.
So barring any, negative feedback from any of you about this, if nothing else, I will send this out, or not send it out, but I will advertise it on Wednesday afternoon.
Great,
Perfect.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
It's a
Peter.
deal.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is Rescue Inc. update. I went to the town information meeting last Thursday, I think, the 31st. They had a great PowerPoint presentation orienting us to staff, the new facility in Townsend, training courses and programs, including that they have the highest level of certification in the state, and they're now unfortunately needing to be trained to handle violent acts as well as active shooting incidents. They're up against more challenges physically as EMT volunteer responders. They talked about the training courses and programs they offer, their fleet, their equipment, and the search and rescue services other than ambulances that they provide. I don't remember the statistics, but they had some interesting PowerPoint presentation, slides about opioid addiction events a year ago or 3 months in the last year and 3 months in this year, and it's like this
Yeah,
way,
it's
this
amazing.
way. It's horrible. They also revealed their financial challenges, which are primarily caused by federal and state healthcare regulations. I'm not going to go into those. And they described their subscription program as $60 a year as a risk management insurance, but agreed that the users who would most benefit from that type of insurance are those least likely to know about or subscribe to this service. Rates for this year, which means in our fiscal year 2019 budget, 18. So we have rates this year in this budget are $22.43. They will go up to $22.30
Per
per capita.
capita.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. There's a population-based, not data-based rates. There is, Gordon may be having a conversation with Drew about how this makes sense. And I didn't see Dan Ingold's name still on the board, so.
Dan, I asked a couple questions, this came up, it might have even been prior to your joining, I think it could have come up as late as last year, or late last year. Anyway, there were a couple questions I had in searching this. Dan Ingold was the person who he responded to my questions.
He's the representative.
He's a
Yes,
board, he's on their board.
and he's
or
also
yeah.
on our the volunteer fire department as well. So anyway, he's very involved, and I'm going to work with Dan to possibly have some conversations with Drew just to understand, I guess my big question is, why are we looking at solely population-based numbers as opposed to grand list numbers? Because I feel some of the towns may not be getting the representation they should because of the population dips during the summer and the peaks during the winter. So that was I just wanted to explore the conversation. I think I mentioned it when Drew came.
You did, and you talked, this was information from February 17th.
Correct.
Of 2017, yeah.
So I never got any response from Drew, but I thought I'd pursue a conversation.
I think it's worth, because it's like the Wyndham Solid Waste. Can we save money? Is there a
Right,
way
I
to
mean-
not, are we getting charged for all the accidents on 91 that have nothing to do with Guilford?
Yes.
Is Dover, with all their ski accidents, paying the same amount of money that we are?
Not on
My
if it's per
understanding-
capita, then it's who lives here, right?
That's right, yeah.
No, you're right. You're right.
Location,
And
yeah.
I'm
So,
not sure where those numbers are getting pulled in, though.
That's a good
And I'd
question
like
to
to know
ask.
that
Yeah.
answer,
So-
because Dan, when he responded to a couple of things, mentioned that stretch of 91 we are responsible for, I thought. So maybe I misunderstood.
No, or maybe it's per
No.
capita plus something.
Plus,
maybe so
exactly.
formula.
So it's good to understand what.
Mhm.
So that would be the highway that is 91 that's in Guilford.
Mhm.
That is correct.
Mhm.
And my understanding was
I
we
never
are,
heard
but I will research that and report
come
back.
back to us. Okay,
Yeah, I'd like
thank
to
you
find
very
that
much.
out.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's consistent for, well, I guess there aren't that many towns in Vermont that, I guess, rescue itself, only serves Guilford, Brattleboro, I'm thinking.
No,
They
it serves
serve
15
They
towns.
serve
15 towns, and
towns.
how many of them are
On 91?
contiguous to
No, I
91?
don't know that answer.
Yeah.
It's just a question, that,
Brattleboro, Thomas,
about their,
Yeah.
Putney.
Putney.
But that's
So, we don't know.
curious.
But it's worth, so I just wanted to
Anyway.
update you on that meeting and say that Gordon is going to pursue a conversation that he started in February with Dan and maybe Drew, and see if there's anything we can do about this fee to the town.
Meanwhile, it's a good idea to be a subscriber.
Yeah. Kerosene and fuel oil bids, Peter.
Yes, so as was requested by the select board, I was to put out bids for new contracts for fuel oil for the town garage and kerosene for the town office. And in the process of doing so, received a really very nice phone call from, I just blanked out on his name all of a sudden, from Barrows and Fisher.
Shane Barrows.
Thank you. Shane Barrows, Ed Barrows and Fisher. And they are the ones that are currently providing us with fuel, oil, and kerosene. And his concern was that 2 points. One, due to the recent hurricane in Texas, that had caused a substantial increase in the price of crude oil, and with the destruction of a refinery, that also increased costs of those byproducts. And so he was concerned that if we put out a bid now, that we would be paying considerably more than we are at our current rate. In addition to that, he was also concerned that we're heading into the cold season, and so prices are already at or near their peak, or will be within the next several months. And so he was concerned that putting out a bid for that reason would also cause us to have increased prices. And so while he was happy to submit a bid, he did not think it was in the best interest of the town to do so at this time. And he recommended that most towns that they work with, and he did realize that it's a little bit of for lack of a better way of putting it, a little bit of a backwards way of doing it is putting out bids after the town budget has been approved. But he said most towns put out bids for these forms of petroleum products in April or May, and then make a final decision usually in June prior to the beginning of the new fiscal year. So that was his recommendation to you as a board. Obviously, you can make your own decision, and he would be happy to submit a new bid, but he guaranteed that.
No, I understand that. I think it was a
Be
good
higher
suggestion
than-
on
I
his
think
part.
that's
We
wise
appreciate it.
advice.
Yeah,
I thought it was very kind of him to do
yeah,
so.
I agree.
So what we would need is, so what we would be doing is basing our next year's budget on this year's history, and then trying to see what they would come up with in a couple months after town meeting, or around the end of town meeting, to March, April.
So they
So
have
that's
been.
an estimate.
It is an estimate. That being said, they have been providing these products to us for the past 3 years. And so they did provide me with the information, and there's even despite the differences in winters that we've had over the past several years,
Yeah.
we actually have not used substantially more or less one year or the other. It was within a couple hundred gallons, which he said in the scope of things is insignificant for us.
Right, so using that average sounds like.
So our average for the fuel oil is about 1,750 gallons is what our average over the past 3 years has been.
When I come to the town.
And the kerosene average has been about 625 to 650 gallons per year.
What do we run kerosene on, do you know?
This building right here.
This is the
On
kerosene. building?
kerosene.
Yes, which is one of the concerns
Right,
for the
right,
RFB.
Right, I remember that now.
Can I ask, are we on a fixed price contract now?
At the moment, yes.
Okay.
That was put in place by Katie 3 years ago.
Yep, that's fine. I was just wondering if it was fixed price or variable.
Does it run out?
And then,
It was. I could not find a written copy of it. He said that they normally do their contracts for 3 years, so he was not in any way
Good.
surprised to hear from me.
but we also can't renew it for until next year, but only.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Which is, so my suggestion would be, I know you're getting ready to compile all of our contracts, but then we also need to make sure we're cognizant of the schedule. So like when I was doing, there's also a point in time when you can't, well, it might not be so for the amount that we use, but for larger amounts, there might be a time, there's a certain point where you can start locking it in, you can't do it prior in the summer. So what I would do is watch the crude oil prices. And obviously there's going to be a number of add-on charges, but you can sort of gauge where the oil prices are generally, and then most of pick your moment.
That's
So he did explain to me that, similar to what you just stated, due to the small volume that we purchase of these products, that unfortunately we will not be able to capitalize on those extra discounts, unfortunately. So basically it's,
Would that be true of any vendor?
I do not know of any vendor, but that is specifically with them based off of, because we don't meet their minimum threshold.
Wow.
So I would, do not know, but I would not be surprised if it were similar with other vendors.
That wouldn't surprise me either.
No.
The other thing that we'll have to wait and see once we do this is Barrels and Fisher, from my understanding, is one of the few that still delivers kerosene. So if we're looking for a single source vendor for both products, that may limit the responses that we get. Like I said, I do not
We may
know.
not need kerosene next year.
That's correct. That's the other thing. And so why get a
Consummation
contract?
to be wished for.
Yes.
So why set a multi-year contract
Yeah.
for kerosene that we may not use?
Can you ask Barrows and Fishers to send us a copy of our contract so that we have it?
Sure.
So it's in the folder.
So we know, like, can we renew it next year, or maybe it's not even an option?
Sure.
So
Thank
this
you.
doesn't require a motion?
Nope, not at all.
This wasn't,
Update.
Well, thank you for your diligence.
And do you think you could put it like a teaser for like April?
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
I had actually already put a
Or
note
March.
for myself
Yeah.
for
Tickler,
April.
what do they call it?
Tickler.
No.
Ticklers, yeah.
What's a tickler?
It's a reminder to do something.
It reminds you to do something on
We
a
have a
certain
tickler
day.
folder.
Yeah.
I
put
thought
it all
it was
in there.
It's from
perhaps
the
something
60s.
unseemly.
It's like from the 70s, I think, tickler folders.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on, Hunger Council.
Okay, so
You
I'm
have
referring.
5 minutes.
No, it
Matt.
will take not that long. On July 19th, I represented the town of Guilford at the Hunger Council of Wyndham County Region. It actually has a larger scope than just Wyndham County, and all of this whole network of organizations that were concerned with hunger were represented there. And I represented Guilford to report on, to the best of my knowledge, in what way we were responding to hunger in Guilford, what we were providing, and maybe to hear what was available that maybe we didn't yet know about. And we're very lucky to have Pat Hain as one of the main movers and shakers on the Hunger Council, and I felt very secure about that. So I reported as best I could about how things were in Guilford and what we had come up with in terms of the food pantry, help for the kids in school, and so forth. And a lot of resources were presented about what was available to people during the summer in terms of free food, and I was really impressed with the scope. The one thing that is coming up, I believe, is that people will have the opportunity to glean, to go to Harlow Farm and help pick food that would then be donated to, I believe, the food pantries of Wyndham County.
Wow.
And, you know, it's really touching that there's, both from the Hunger Council and what I've heard from them, and also from what I know from being one of the many food pantry volunteers in Guilford, you know, people are really giving. in
Would
this
you say
town.
that Guilford is, from what you heard, is doing as well as other towns nearby?
I think that we're doing very well, and we're providing for certain towns that I won't mention that don't have those services, and I was pleased
Great.
that we could do that.
On a volunteer basis, which is remarkable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, our Pat Hain and all of the people that are behind the food pantry are really providing for more than Guilford, and they're always looking to protect the dignity of all of the people who come in, and also to make people feel very welcomed as if they're going to a store.
Thank you
Well,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for doing that,
Yes,
for
Thank
being
you.
there
Great.
and reporting to us. Next on the agenda is the Town Fair 2017 voting delegate. I said that I believe that, is this something new?
No, it's the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Boy, have I read through this. I was like, I don't know if I can absorb anything else tonight.
No, that's what we received a while ago, a month
Okay.
ago.
So, Veranda, I said I thought Veranda and I both volunteered. Veranda said she would be pleased not to be the voting member. And I would still volunteer because I've gone through all of this stuff. And
Thank you, Sheila.
I did submit our amendment. I did submit our amendment.
Oh,
I never
great.
heard back from Karen if they want to. I don't know if they're going to accept it or not. I never got a response, but I know she got it. So that would mean I would go up on the Wednesday afternoon, stay overnight, and then see everybody Thursday at the town fair. You're not going to be there, right, for that?
I
but-
will happily go and cheer for you, but I'm not
thank
going
you.
to. I don't feel experienced enough to take that on.
This is my first. It was Dick Clark who did this every year.
So
you know.
I did get some feedback from a couple of sources in that the voting delegate traditionally in most towns is the select board chair, which is
Oh.
something new that I learned.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no mandate, it doesn't have to be, it can be whomever you all decide it to be.
We decided.
We
Yeah, we're done.
Let's not worry.
But either way, so that is what has traditionally been the
Okay.
case.
All right, so I get to say that I'm the member and I approve as chairperson.
So did you have to make a motion to do that, or you just
I'll
agree?
move for Sheila to be our appointed representative at
I'll
the
second.
town fair.
I think Gordon got that one.
Is there anybody, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining? On to warrants. Oh, we did the Better Roads Grant
Yep, we
update.
did
Yeah,
that.
We already did
So
that.
we're done.
Yep.
Okay. Warrants.
I'll make the motion to pay the following payroll and warrants. Payroll for the week ending September 3rd, 2017, in the amount of $6,469.33. Payroll for the week ending in September 10th, 2017, in the amount of $5,779.05. Expense warrant 1805 in the amount of $38,107.43. And expense warrant 05CC in the amount of $4,214.83. For a grand total payroll and warrants of $54,570.64. Some of the big expenses on this expense warrant was $15,464 for our second quarter of property and casualty insurance, which was what we budgeted. So not a surprise. Around $3,000 for sand, around $3,000.
If I can interrupt, I'm sorry. It's actually for the third quarter.
Third?
Yes.
So we're gonna correct that? Okay, I'll just
Because-
follow up with you later.
Because our passive insurance goes off of the calendar year, not the fiscal year.
Okay, because it's, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope. About $3,000 for sand, another $3,000 for sand and Surpac, and about $3,000 for calcium chloride.
Do you need a sec? Okay, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So are they here to sign?
Give you these to have. There should be one in there and two in
Gordon,
there.
you seconded that again?
Yes,
Thank you.
and I'd like to make a motion to go in executive session on a personal matter per
Personnel
one.
matters.
A personnel matter.
Sorry.
Per 1 VSA 313A3.
And is there a second?
I second.
Second, Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
So we are reconvening, we're exiting executive session at 8:48 PM, and the select board is taking no action at this time. The next item on the agenda is communications senior solutions. And that is,
Yeah, so they are looking for nominees for their 18th annual Successful Aging Award. They're looking for a successful leader in the community who hope that will, the select board or others in the community would consider nominating someone for consideration. The Successful Aging Award recognizes the accomplishments of a senior who is at least 80 years old and lives in either Windham or Windsor County. Must be currently involved in activities that foster strong communities encompassing and supporting all ages. They're looking for someone who exemplifies an awareness of living a balanced life, recognizing spiritual health and social well-being. And then it goes on to just describe what they are looking for in nominations, and the sample nomination form is included.
So my suggestion would be that if the community at large has somebody that they're interested in nominating, or if anybody does, that they contact Peter directly
Yes.
for the nomination form.
And then I forgot, I had one, Penny emailed me and asked me to ask the select board about whether the Brook Community Center can have access to the mailing lists we have to send out their own mailings.
We ran into this a year ago about something else.
What did we do?
I'm trying to remember. I think I'm way too tired
Was
to
it the
remember.
library? What's on our, what list do we have? We have the town grand list?
Yeah.
Well, but it's in a format,
And the
like it's
voter
that
list?
Maple Leaf or whatever that has everybody who lives here, so you can send out mailings, that they, that to give them permission to have access to our mailing list.
So I think it was somebody, our grand list is public data. And somebody came to the listers or something and asked.
It was the library, I think.
That it could have been the library also, but I think there was something.
That was one incident, that was about 2 years ago, Penny said, that Kathy wanted to do a mailing to everyone in the town.
And what happened?
We got it.
I mean, I
There's
think
precedence then.
it's just hard to it's hard to say where. This is a really complex issue, I think.
Maybe we can table this.
And
Table for next week.
I feel like if we
2
could be
weeks.
on the agenda for the 25th,
Next week.
there are some
Next week.
issues to be.
There are, I would agree.
We have some potential issues, and there are some potential benefits to this. So I think we should sort of think about that. And
Then we can have one policy for everyone.
That's right, because
Yeah.
this
And-
will not be the only request.
yeah,
I had a question, Gabby, about whether it was deeply time sensitive for them to have this.
I don't know,
Okay.
but I don't see why we can't.
It's fundraising.
and I would like to suggest that we table outstanding items before the select board as they will be in the minutes, and we have all read them.
Thank you.
And if
I
we are in
move that we adjourn the
agreement,
meeting.
Second.
we'd move it.
8:57.
To jump over.
No, you did well. You were all over it.
Sorry, 8:52.
So the meeting, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned at 8:52.